The US President Donald Trump has been holding meetings with Arab leaders in the Saudi capital Riyadh ahead of his keynote speech on Islam. He's expected to tell governments at the Arab Islamic Summit they need to do more to stamp out religious intolerance and extremism. Our security correspondent Frank Gardner sent us this report from Riyadh.
A smooth passage to the palace for President Trump's armour-plated convoy. He's amongst friends and allies here, the leaders of the Gulf Arab states, most of whom share his antipathy towards their giant neighbour, Iran. The US Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, signed a counter-terrorism pact with the Saudi Crown Prince. Yesterday, the Secretary called on Iran to stop what he called its malign behaviour. Last night, President Trump joined his Saudi house in a traditional sword dance of welcome. His earlier controversial comments appear to have been forgiven here.
With President Trump, the inflammatory remarks from Muslims, the perceived quote-unquote Muslim ban, that caused a lot of noise in the United States. But you'd be surprised how little noise it caused in the region. What did, however, cause a lot of controversy in the region and caused a lot of support for Donald Trump in the region was the strike on Assad in Syria.
That's gone down well on the streets of the capital, Riyadh. Saudis admire strong leadership. But when it comes to religion, Donald Trump may face a more skeptical audience. The speech President Trump is making today on Islam to the leaders of more than 40 Islamic nations is risky territory. Because this is Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam. So every single word of his speech will be carefully scrutinized, not just here in Riyadh, but all over the Middle East and beyond. Excerpts of the speech say Arab leaders must do their fair share in fighting terrorism. That's not a message that will go down well with countries that have already lost hundreds of citizens doing exactly that. Frank Gardner, BBC News, Riyadh.
Also in Riyadh, our chief international correspondent Lise Doucette has been speaking to the former US Defense Secretary Ash Carter. Lise asked him whether Islamic extremism had been on the agenda during his many trips to Saudi Arabia.
Well, that's been a feature, no question about it, of the origins of religious extremism within Islam, which have sprouted terror, Al-Qaeda and ISIL. It is important, and this is something the United States can't do, that the Islamic countries stand together against the use of their religion as an excuse for barbarism. And that is what the Saudi leaders are saying here in Riyadh. And that's important because that's something we Westerners,
do you think they're doing
Americans, Europeans, well, they've started this.
Was that your message? Was that your message when you used to come to Saudi Arabia as the Secretary of Defense? It's got to start at home. You're part of the problem.
Well, as one of the messages was, yes, that they have to use their moral authority to stand against religious extremism. That's something Americans can't do. We can help them militarily, but we can't help them make that political and moral argument on behalf of Islam. And yes, it involves Saudi Arabia, but that's only one place.
But did you feel they did enough?
This religious extremism is, we just head east, Pakistan, Southeast Asia, north on up to Iran and Syria.
When you gave that message on your many visits to Saudi Arabia, do you think that they listened, that they did enough, or have to do more now?
Well, I think they know they need to do more, and that's why they're talking to the United States and other countries about doing more. That's what the meaning is, as I understand it, of this new Islamic coalition is. It will work on the moral and political front, and also on the economic front.
With me now is Zaid Belbagi, an analyst and commentator on Gulf affairs, who's a columnist for the Jeddah-based Arab News. I know you are watching every line that comes out of this series of high-level meetings. What's most interesting about the first 24 hours of the Trump visit?
I think two things, first and foremost. First, seeing Trump on the world stage. He seemed slightly uncomfortable, actually, with some of with the high diplomacy, which for me was interesting. He remains a creature of Manhattan, and seeing him on the world stage was interesting. And secondly, I think a return to concert diplomacy of the 19th century almost. For the Saudis to whip around all the Arab and Islamic leaders into one session, I think is really interesting, because we haven't seen this kind of diplomacy for a long time.
And Donald Trump is preparing in the next hour or so to give this speech, his peaceful vision of Islam, in which we've been given a few lines. He will tell his audience Middle Eastern nations can't wait for American power to crush the enemy of terrorism for them. Arab leaders must do their fair share. How do you think that is likely to be received?
I think they'll be cautious about his hyperbole because they've been promised a lot by US presidents before. We're almost 8 years to the day since Obama made that speech in Cairo, which you'll remember when you were Washington Bureau. So they've been promised a lot before, but I think what's worrying for us, and we'll have to look at, is that apparently some of the speech has been drafted by the same fellow who drafted the anti-Muslim ban, Stephen Miller. Exactly. So it'd be interesting to see how much poetic license he has over this speech.
Where do you think the line is? Because the White House has let us know this is not Donald Trump telling Arab leaders what to do, but some of the rhetoric might be taken in that vein.
It will be, and I mean, the White House has been keen to say that it will be collaborative, but I think they should steer well away from seeming to lecture the region, which Obama was famously known for in the Middle East. He came across as, a university professor telling them what to do. But again, as Frank Gardner said in his report, they do admire strong leadership. It is a part of the world where that macho, somewhat male take on leadership is coveted. So I think in these circumstances, Trump is oddly has the right skills.
And the fact that he prioritises doing business, getting trade, signing contracts.
On that, I mean, it's hugely fascinating. I mean, obviously his mandate is jobs, 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 as he keeps telling us. But how many of the MOUs come into fruition? That'd be very interesting, because these are a lot of the memorandums of understanding, and be interested to see what the follow-up is.
That's a really important point, and we should follow up with you at some point. Zaid Belbagi, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.